I don't know why she thinks that firewood would rot by snow. Snow is dry. You can live alone in a cabin in the wilderness and also be close to other people. This is in no way evidence that she doesn't live in her house. Social media is something completely new in the human experience, and I think it's important that we talk about it as we create it. A week or so ago, I saw a comment on one of Isabel Paige's videos saying that her life wasn't as she made it seem. I tried to find the comment again, but Jesus! I responded to that, but I also thought like, that's an interesting topic. When does our artistic depictions of our lives cross the line into lies? It's really a nice topic for a video, and I feel like I have a lot to say about it. But then I saw a video by someone called Jasmine, and it made me feel all sorts of things. She seems like a really sweet and sincere person, but I still think that she has a few things wrong. Much like Jasmine did in her video, I'm going to jump in to clear up some things where I feel like I didn't really get my point across. First, I want to add that even though Jasmine seems to truly believe that Isabel is purposely faking her life, I find her evidence really weak and sometimes even straight up wrong. And even though she has good intentions, I think her video is spreading misinformation and might actually do more harm than good. I didn't know about Isabel living on her parents' land, but it didn't change my perception of her or her videos at all, because like honestly, it's just how rural areas work.
A lot of her videos actually focus on living simple and free and not focusing on material items and money. And this sends a message to a lot of viewers who are seeing this video and thinking, wow, why am I not able to do that? Well, not many people have parents who have a farm in the middle of the mountains that you can just build a house on. It's just not, that's not really how it goes for life.
That is exactly how life goes for many people around the world, especially if you come from a low-income family and don't have the possibility to buy your own land. I understand what she means, which is why I also want to add that I am in no way rich. I grew up with a single disabled mother, and today usually I work at least 2 to 3 jobs, but have no real funds, and no bank in their right mind would ever approve a loan for me or my partner. And I still think that Jasmine is unfair to Isabel. Something that used to be really common here is like generational living. You want to move out, but you also want to live close to your parents, so you just build another house on their land. I think people in rural areas do it like this for 2 reasons. First, they don't have the possibility to move very far away. And secondly, you don't have to finish the house very quickly, but you still have somewhere cheap to live during construction. This is not as common today because people have more economic possibilities, but what I'm saying is that it's a lot easier and cheaper to build where you already are, and doing that is a smart move, not a manipulative one. The fact that it's not as easy for everyone to move into the mountains can't really be used as an argument, because in my case it would be really hard for me to move to New Zealand and make videos about that, but it was really easy for me to find a place here in northern Sweden and make videos about that. The children of people living in rural areas have access to land. It's literally the only way of living there. If you are born in a city with no connections to a rural area, of course it will be harder for you because you have to be the first generation settling in that place. You can't really hold the fact that she makes videos and lives where she have family against her. But even if Isabel says stuff like, you should all live like this, it'll be great, or something, you could achieve that in a lot of other places that's much more accessible to you.
Being able to find a piece of land that is that secluded in nature is extremely expensive. And that's not even to mention the developing of the land. If you're thinking about water systems or roads for the cars to drive on, even if they're just dirt roads, that all costs money to develop before you can really just live somewhere in the middle of nature.
This is the exact opposite of my experience. The less inhabited an area is, the cheaper the land is, because not many people are willing to live there. I think there is a huge difference here in mine and Jasmine's understanding of what it means to live in a remote area or to be surrounded by nature. Jasmine seemed to think that it's hard to access nature and secluded areas, but you don't have to be the only person for a radius of miles to experience solitude and breathtaking nature. I'm struggling with a way to explain this because it's so fundamental in my understanding of the world, but let me explain it like this. You can live far enough away from people to barely notice their existence and still build close enough to developed land to access roads and communal water systems. Fairly easy in the sense that if you're building a house anyway, it doesn't necessarily have to be harder because it's secluded or surrounded by wilderness. It could be, but it doesn't have to, like if you build in the outskirts of a small village. It all depends on the area and the plot of land you're interested in. Both things can be true. You can live alone in the wilderness or like close to lots of nature and live close to your parents. In my case, I live in this beautiful old building next to miles and miles of forest and nothing but forest. But I still live 5 minutes away from my mom by car and I rent this place from relatives. Both things are true. I really don't think it's Isabel's fault that people have prejudice about this or that they have their own understanding of what it requires to live like she does. No one would say a title like Living Alone in the City is misleading just because your parents live like a few houses down the road. You still live alone in the city, and Isabel still lives alone in the mountains. As I am editing this, I realized that there is 2 ways to interpret Isabel's titles that I haven't thought of before. Living alone in the mountains can be understood as she's living alone in her building, or that she's the only person in the mountains, I guess. And I have always understood it as the first way, and I haven't even thought of the other one, and maybe this is what's causing all of this confusion.
The other reason why it's such a big detail to leave out that she's living on her parents' land is that she has access to a house that has electricity, it has warmth, it has space to store things like clothes and food, and that defeats the purpose of living alone on your own in a tiny home in the mountains.
What does she mean with purpose? I thought that the whole point with tiny houses was that it's cheaper to build and run than regular houses, not that you're only allowed to live in them if you're a hermit.
She's never wearing clothes. Her bare skin is always showing, and if you are living in a tiny house in the middle of the mountains in winter, don't you think you would zip your jacket or like wear a scarf?
I don't know where Jasmine lives. She has a Scandinavian winter shirt, so maybe she lives in Scandinavia somewhere, I don't know. But I live in northern Sweden, a little bit further down from the Arctic Circle, so it's not as cold as it can be, but it's still pretty cold. But people still like wear shorts in the winter because it can be snow and pretty warm weather, depending on where you live and what you think warm weather is. If I would be out for hours and hours, then I would probably wear like more layers. But not if I'm going out like with the compost, or like if I would go to fetch wood. Then I wouldn't bother to take all that time to get dressed in several layers. I would just like go out in what I wear. Unless it starts to go down to like minus 20 degrees Celsius or below, then I might bother with thicker clothing.
Why are we chopping firewood in a dress?
Sometimes winter clothing is even too hot. The other day I was shoveling snow and I had to, take off the jacket. And like jackets too, I don't even own proper winter clothing, even though I live in a place where there's like meters of snow. And not many of my friends do either. Only the people that are like interested in winter sports like skiing or snowmobiling, or maybe have children in an age where they want to play outside. Those people have proper winter clothing, but most people don't, and especially not young people. When I was younger, I used to wear like a few thin layers of clothing most of the winter, as most people I know. I'm not saying that this is smart or advising other people to do it. I'm just saying it happens all the time and it doesn't work as an argument here. I told my partner about this today and his jaw literally dropped when I said that this was used as evidence. To quote him, if you go out in the closest town, half of the people will wear full winter clothing and the other half will wear t-shirts. If you're a healthy person, it's not dangerous at all to be out for a little while in the cold. A lot of people actually claims that it has health benefits. With that said, no one would ever advise you to just go out in the cold without clothes or training, but this is in no way evidence that she doesn't live in her house.
And then came practical things, like all of the firewood being on the soil, covered in snow.
We store our firewood directly on the ground. When you stack it in certain patterns, air can go under and it's okay. As long as you have like a roof or what was it called? A tarpaulin. Which Isabel clearly has in the very shot that Jasmine used as an example. Jasmine claims to know all this stuff, but so many things are wrong. I don't know why she thinks that firewood would rot by snow. It rots by repeated exposure to moisture, and snow is dry. I know it feels wet, but that's because it melts from your body heat. So it's not really a big deal if some of your wood rolls out in the snow, because all that means is that it will be exposed to moisture one time, the next time the snow melts. It's a lot worse to have wood lying around out literally any other time of the year.
Or the tiny house being built in a cold climate, yet half of it being windows.
Windows comes in all types. This building is about 100 years old and it has traditional windows. So in the winter we attach an extra window. That's because glass doesn't isolate, but the air in between the glasses do. And we have pretty big windows, but they don't get cold because we have that extra window with air isolating. Air is one of the best isolators there is. That's why you dress in layers when it's cold. It's not the extra fabric that keeps you warm, it's the air in between them. And modern windows have these small spaces built in for isolation purposes. My mom has a pretty similar stove to what Isabel has, and her house used to be completely heated by wood. Her house heats up pretty quick because it's not very big. I have only ever seen Isabel use her stove for cooking, and I'm not even sure it's her primary source of heat. But if it was, it wouldn't surprise me at all, because you don't need very much energy to heat a small house compared to a larger one. Nowadays, though, she has an electrical pump. I don't know, maybe Isabel does too. One argument was that in her parents' summer house, I think it was, she could access electricity, but she has electric lights in her tiny house, so I assume she also have access to electric heating if she would want to. But still, it's far more eco-friendly than heating a big house. Unless this was an argument to refer back to the fact that it's expensive to get roads and water and stuff. In that case, I have already addressed this.
And she mentions a lot about preserving food and fermenting food for the entire winter, but where is it all?
Isn't the whole thing with tiny houses that they have like hidden storage? I've seen that Isabel's bed is elevated, so I just assumed she had like a bunch of stuff under there. But again, going to my own life, we have unisolated closets, which is great because it's cooler, so you can store food there. And from the outside, it probably doesn't look as big as it is. It just looks like a wall. Another traditional way of storing food here is in the ground because it's cooler there in the summer. And in the winter, you can just like put it out. Unless it's too cold, then it freezes. Then Jasmine talks about unpurified water. And I read the links that she had linked. And it's about a bacteria that we have here too in Sweden. But like generally, like we are taught in school and everything, if you follow certain rules, like always drink running water and from upstream, preferably from mountains, then it's generally considered to be safe. I guess you could argue that someone could see Isabel's video and then go drink from a local water source. Now, I do believe that as your audience grows, so does your responsibility towards that audience. Because if you're making something just for you, you can do it however you want. It might come back and bite you. J.K. Rowling, anyone? But if you have a wide reach, then you have power over people. And I do agree with that. YouTubers are called influencers for a reason. I find it very unlikely that someone would look at Isabel's videos and then go to a random body of water and just drink it because they saw it. It's a little far for me. But then back to Isabel. Is her videos staged? In a way, I think so, but probably not in the way that Jasmine seems to believe. Now, I don't know Jasmine. I had a peek at her channel, and her videos are mostly her sitting in front of a camera like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I both enjoy making and watching content like this. And I think my usual style of storytelling is a little bit closer to Isabel's, so let me tell you what I think. I'm really glad I talked about this because Jasmine just uploaded a video on this exact topic. We both, I think, are trying to portray our everyday lives in a poetic, cinematic manner. And I am fairly new to that. And something that really shocked me was how hard it is to make high quality footage. Jasmine was apparently also surprised by this.
The film time to get all of the shots and angles and the right lighting for a clip like that took me 4 hours.
This was my entire point of this part of the video.
And the editing, I don't even know how many hours it's been because I've been doing it over the course of like 3 days.
I know, right? Try doing it with a baby. Now, if you saw my empty house tour, you saw that some of it is basically unviewable, but I saw it clear as day in real life. So to show something accurately through a camera, you need a lot of light. There is no way I can just like put up a camera and leave it there and go out my day, because I would run into so many problems. I would run out of digital storage. Maybe the shot was too dark. Maybe I was out of frame. So you kind of have to set up your camera for each thing you do. So you can't show your natural routine without breaking it.
Even though that video showed me doing all of these peaceful things, I wasn't even paying attention to the act of doing those because I was so consumed by making sure that I got the right shot on the camera.
Filming seems to get easier the more you do it, but it's still a lot of work. And when filming is your job, I imagine you don't want to work all the time. So I think a lot of people film in bulk, meaning that they live their life like they do and film when they don't have to do those things. But that doesn't mean that it's not true. Just because I take 3 angles when I lift my coffee cup, that doesn't make it not true that I drink coffee in the morning. I mean, I'm a Swede, I drink all the coffee.
And for the people who are putting out these videos multiple times a month, I can't imagine that they're actually able to appreciate that life that they're sharing, because it's such a full-time job in itself in order to get the shots and edit them to create the movie.
I wonder if she has noticed that these people's clips are almost never longer than 3 seconds. So the slow-mo clips only have to be like 1.5 seconds long. For the last 3 months, I have managed to make 3 videos with my best attempt at cinematic storytelling. Since I have a baby, I'm only able to film like 2 days a week when my partner has a day off. I live far up north, so there's really only 1 or 2 hours a day with good enough light for me to film. So that's 4 hours per week, and I'm still able to produce a video a month. Imagine if I had like 8 hours a day to my disposal.
For example, since she has built her tiny house, she has purposely left her parents' house out of the frame of her videos.
Cinematic filming takes a lot of time and effort to show something that you usually do effortlessly. So of course you want to make that time worth it. And if you enjoy filmmaking, which there's no doubt in my mind that Isabel does, of course she wants to be better at it and makes better shots and more beautiful shots, more high quality shots. If you like something, you want to be better at it. So of course she would change her camera angles to something more beautiful, like the woods or the river. I thought about this for a while, and I think there's mainly 3 reasons why someone would leave something out from a video. Number 1 is it's not what you personally focus on. When I go outside, I look at the beautiful mountains or the trees. It's what I love. It brings me joy. I imagine that it's the same thing for Isabel. But then there's also 2 very important reasons to why I don't show buildings. And the first is it's illegal, at least here, to film into someone else's property. But the last very, very important reason is that I don't want people to be able to figure out exactly where I live. I don't have a very big following, but my partner does, and people be creepy. The second reason why you would leave something out from a video, it's because it's something you don't like. I don't like when my kitchen is messy, so I don't film when I have dishes in the sink. If this had been Jasmine's angle, then I could have agreed with everything. It's not really great for our self-esteem or overall mental health if we're only ever shown the best versions of people. Luckily, not many people are affected by my videos. The third reason, it's because you don't think about it. It's so mundane to you that you don't reflect on it in your everyday life. I don't think about the color of my socks. I don't go around thinking about that in my everyday life. Then, of course, you could argue that you would leave something out because you want to trick people. I don't think that people in general are doing that, and I especially don't think that Isabel is doing that. I think the last reason is why she leaves things out. She doesn't think about it. I think she focuses on, oh, this is a great shot and I will film it like this. You know, it's just her backyard, basically. Jasmine said that this wasn't transparent enough. And in a responsive comment, Isabel said that she's trying to be transparent. And a lot of people in the comments seem to think that she is, and that she has said all these things that Jasmine claimed she was hiding in several videos. Jasmine's argument was that it's easy to miss because not every one of your followers or viewers will watch every video, or not even any video all the way through. And Isabel makes long format videos. So Jasmine suggested that Isabel should make one short video addressing only accusations like Jasmine's. But according to her own argument, people could miss that video. And even if she made such a video, in a year that will be so buried in the depth of YouTube that no one will see it. So should she make another video about it again? As you understand, I think this is really unfair to Isabel because whatever she does, she can't win. It's not her fault you assume things about her life, even though she has shown and stated the opposite on multiple occasions. But then there's also this. Maybe you want to convey the feeling it gives you when you have your coffee in the morning.
If you use slow-mo, you slap a filter on it and you put some pretty music with it, you can make anything look like a movie.
I wonder what she thinks regular movies are, because it's just stuff that's filmed and color graded. I feel so conflicted in my feelings towards her because she has good intentions and her latest video is really funny. I just don't think it's funny in the context when her last two videos were singling out a young girl making very serious accusations based on guesses, which makes her come off as something of a bully.
This is so ridiculous! Oh. Okay, let's move this because it's not aesthetic.
Here's a clip when she makes fun of people like me spending time filming a crystal. But I imagine she has that crystal because she likes it. In a lot of her videos, she is wearing crystals, so I assume they make her happy. I don't understand why she thinks it's so silly to want to share those feelings with your audience. She's a really talented artist, so I was surprised she thinks it's a lie to have an artistic or creative approach to filmmaking. But then again, she makes realistic graphite drawings, which I personally find as more of a translation and not as much a creative process. I assume she has like a photographic reference. I'm thinking maybe she doesn't take the photo references herself and doesn't really know how that works. Even though it takes a lot of time and expensive equipment to set up a lighting like that, cameras still can't capture reality as we see it. They can only make educated guesses based on the settings. But professional photographers still has to go in digitally in post-production and manually change things like the white balance, the contrast, to make it more true to how it actually looked. The mood is really dependent on the lighting you had to begin with, but you can really take your image anywhere you want at this stage. This is a long and tedious and pretty complex process, and that's why they invented stuff like filters, to make it quicker and to help people who don't really have the knowledge. The finished project still isn't a lie, even though the original wasn't true to begin with. It's just how digital imagery works. And then when it comes to the dangers of people wanting a life they see that might not be true, I get and I agree that we are an impressionable species. But once again, according to Jasmine's own argument, people don't watch every video, and I highly doubt someone would see the title Living Alone in the Mountains, watch like 5 minutes of the video, and then go, I will sell all my belongings and move to a cabin without any contact with other people and no clothes and no research. I really think that this is an important conversation to have, and I think it's great that Jasmine talked about this, but I find the arguments for using Isabel's channel as an example, the arguments isn't strong enough for me. Then there's the point of Isabel's profits from this manipulation. Isabel doesn't monetize her videos, but she does apparently have a Patreon, and she did sell like a coffee cup. When it comes to Patreon, I view it sort of like the Swedish tax system does. Here in Sweden, Patreon is viewed as a marketplace. It's a trade. You offer something in return for money. And Isabel offers videos like the one she makes. And some people who like them are willing to pay for it. Jasmine says that you should be aware that you're buying a story, but nothing I've ever seen from Isabel's videos, and I haven't seen all of them, I have seen a few, but nothing gives me the impression that she lives like super remote with no people around. The few videos I've seen, I know she has a car, I know she works in a town nearby. As a person living in a rural area, it's just how it works. I feel like my entire point of this video is both can be true. You can live alone in a cabin in the wilderness and also be close to other people. I don't know, I don't really think it's a hard concept to grasp. According to Jasmine, she made her video because of care for Isabel's viewers. And some people accused her for being jealous, and she said she wasn't. I don't think she is either. I did first kind of brush her video off as someone trying to profit from Isabel's name. Out of these two people, Jasmine is the one I feel that has a super clickbaity title and thumbnail, and the keywords to her video is just Isabel's video titles copied straight off. There's a saying in my language, I don't know if it's in English, but it's through ourselves we know others, which basically means that we assume others think the way we do, so we make sense of their actions through our own way of reasoning. So I was thinking like, well, aren't you doing the same thing? But who am I to talk? Here I am making a response video to a response video. If Jasmine would have had literally any other angle on her video, I would have bought it. Like if she would have said, Isabel is always so smiley and it's important that we can see that she sometimes struggles. I would have bought that. But as a person living in a cold rural area, the arguments she has for proof is just nonsensical.
But if there is so much conflicting opinion, then is this knowledge really common sense?
We all understand the world from what we see and hear and are used to. And when you live in an area like this, it's just as obvious to me as the sky that it's how the world works. That Isabel's behaviors aren't necessarily dangerous. And to me, places like this are fairly accessible. If you live in an area that gives you different expectations or a different understanding of this, it's nothing that I could have foreseen and adapted to, and I suspect that's the case with Isabel too.
Is this knowledge really common sense? Or does the presentation of the videos play a part in creating this confusion?
I really agree with Jasmine's whole message, I really do. It is really important that people approach social media with a critical mind. I agree we have to hold content creators responsible, and it's important that we get to see the full picture, but I still don't see the harm of enjoying to make cinematic shots. I think the dangers are in the content of the videos and not how they are shown. My point of view is that this is not intentionally made by Isabel. She can't expect Isabel to understand, predict, and cater to each and every one of her viewers' understanding of the world. And as I hope I have made it clear, there's several very important reasons to why you would avoid filming human-made structures. Jasmine claims she should for other people's safety, but what about Isabel's safety? Filming human-made structures could really put her in danger. While we're on the topic of toxic and manipulative behaviors on social media, I'm not saying it's intentional, but Jasmine is the one directly profiting from targeting a young girl, making very serious accusations, not knowing if they're true or not, tainting Isabel's name in the process. She said herself that people barely even watched her video and just went for her in the comment section, but I have seen the same thing happen in Isabel's comment section because of her video. And she could have made this video about this topic without mentioning anyone at all. Or having several examples.